In 1996, Wes Craven released onto horror fans the postmodern masterpiece that is Scream. The movie would spawn 3 additional sequels, with the 4th incoming, as Scream has established itself as one of the premier franchises in horror, alongside legendary titles like Halloween, Nightmare on Elm Street, and Friday the 13th. The movie's famed killer Ghostface has become equally iconic, becoming a go-to Halloween outfit and etching all of their names alongside Michael, Freddy, and Jason. However, I think most of the original movie's success comes from the protagonist of the film, Sidney Prescott. At the time, slashers were known for their
big-breasted girl who can't act, who's always running up the stairs when she should be going out the front door. It's insulting.
Enter Sidney Prescott, who, like the Laurie Strodes before her, became an iconic final girl who is known for being a
Bam! Sid! Super bitch!
Sidney represents a new final girl, though, one that bends the rules that previous final girls adhere to in order to create this new character. Scream revitalized the slasher film by revitalizing the final girl, creating a more progressive character that embraces female sexuality. To begin, we should first define what a final girl is. The term was coined by Carol Clover in her book, Men, Women, and Chainsaws, Gender in the Modern Horror Film. Besides the obvious that the final girl is the last female character alive, there are also several traits that define them. Clover describes the final girl as intelligent, watchful, level-headed, the first character to sense something amiss, and the only one to deduce from accumulating evidence the pattern and extent of the threat. The final girl is the opposite of that big-breasted girl who runs upstairs. She is smart enough to outlast the killer and either escape their clutches or vanquish them. Clover's fundamental argument, though, is that the final girl is masculine in nature. She says the final girl is, on reflection, a congenial double for the adolescent male, and argues that what separates her from other girls is her boyishness. The final girl is often virginal, and through the power of that repressed sexual energy, she is able to defeat the monster at the end of the movie and conclude her journey. This begs the question, is Sidney Prescott a final girl? In short, yes. To be literal again, she is the last young female character alive at the end of the movie. She is the heroine that rises up to defeat the monster. Clover also adds, the gender of the final girl is likewise compromised from the outset by her masculine interests. Her inevitable sexual reluctance, her apartness from other girls, sometimes her name. To begin the film, Sidney is not sexually active. The trauma from her mother's death leaves Sidney with intimacy issues.
No, I wouldn't dream of breaking her underwear rule.
It is also clear that Sidney seems different from other girls. It would appear to be her intimacy issues that causes Sidney to bottle up a little more than her friend Tatum and other girls in school. Lastly,
Come on, Sid.
Sid!
it is too apparent. In addition, it is Sidney who rises up and uses the monster's weapon on itself, in this case the monster's Billy and Stu, who use their knowledge of movies to outsmart their victims and then knives to gut them. In the climactic battle, Sidney quite literally uses a movie to kill Stu, and then dons the mask that Billy and Stu use to frighten their victims, before using the gun they were going to use to kill her father to finish off Billy.
Careful. This is the moment when the supposedly dead killer comes back to life for one last scare.
Not in my movie.
These help signify that Sidney is indeed a final girl who goes through the journey of sexual repression and finishes off the killer. However, Sidney does not follow the typical final girl journey as defined by Clover. The overall arc is there, but Sidney takes enough detours to the point where she really is a new type of final girl. The striking difference of Sidney is that she breaks certain rules that the final girl must follow, but still lives to tell the tale. To begin, while she began her journey with an underwear rule and the sexual repression was there, the extent of her boyishness is questionable. Unlike someone like Laurie Strode, Sidney is very much an object of desire. Despite not having sex, she does have a boyfriend, and other characters express their interest in her.
I always had a thing for you, Sid!
Do you think Sid would go out with me?
No, I don't at all. No.
For all of Clover's talk of the final girl being masculine, Sidney is feminized by other characters throughout the film. Then there's the obvious issue that Sidney has sex. This is clearly a no-go as described by both Clover and the film.
There are certain rules that one must abide by in order to successfully survive a horror movie. For instance, number 1, you can never have sex.
Clover, talking about the final girl, states, when the final girl stands at last in the light of day with the knife in her hand, she has delivered herself into the adult world, However, this doesn't really apply to Sydney, as she had already entered the adult world when she lost her virginity. Instead, Sydney's defeat of the killer signifies a different victory. Whereas Clover's final girl is on a quest to release her sexual repression and realize her masculinity, Sydney is on a quest of sexual liberation, which becomes her goal after she has sex. The typical final girl journey is one where her sexual repression is released upon defeat of the killer. In lieu of sex is the use of a phallic object where she delivers herself into the adult world. But Sydney's monster does not sexually repress her in that manner. Instead, it is the shaming of too much sex that is the repression. Sydney's mother's reputation of sleeping around town haunts Sydney to the point where she admits,
I think I'm really scared that I'm gonna turn out just like her, you know?
upon having sex, in Billy and Stu's eyes, she is now on equal footing with her mother, and Sydney's fears are realized. Billy turned into the killer he is due to his mother abandoning him, which he blames on Sydney's mom, who slept with his father, causing them to split. Billy turns his trauma into blame of female sexuality, conveniently leaving out that his father is also to blame. Billy, as the monster, represents repression of female sexuality in particular, which differs from Clover's monsters, who represent sexual repression in general. This is important, as Clover's final girls can be victorious by being masculine. Their sexual liberation does not have to be feminine, whereas Sydney's does. One of Clover's quotes does apply to Sydney's case, saying of the final girl, "She is what the killer once was. He is what she could become should she fail in her battle for sexual selfhood." Billy could not get over his mother abandoning him. Should Sydney fail that same battle and let the fear of becoming her mother consume her, she would repress her female sexuality. Billy shames Sydney and represses female sexuality, so by killing Billy and defeating the monster, Sydney embraces female sexuality and becomes sexually liberated. Rather than having a female protagonist go through a journey in order to become masculine, Scream features a female protagonist who embraces her femininity and creates a progressive, sex-positive character. This distinction is a fresh take on the final girl and creates a fresh take on the slasher subgenre as a whole. This allowed Scream to be a standout film amongst the stalling genre, and cemented Sydney as a new final girl to remember.
Oh, jeez. Nice shot.
Bitch.
No, I mean, camera shot. Where'd you learn to